The grand chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent. Hundreds of alien beings from across the universe sat around a massive round table that seemed to float in midair. Blue light from the stars outside poured through the tall glass windows. The mood was grim. Ambassador Zorlath slammed his purple tentacle on the table. His skin glowed with frustration as he spoke. 3 cycles, 3 full cycles we have debated with no answer, he bellowed. His translator device made his alien words clear to all present. The Void Eaters draw closer each day. Already they have consumed the outer worlds of the Maxon system. The other council members shifted uncomfortably. Some had multiple eyes that blinked nervously. Others had scales that changed color with their mood. All showed signs of fear. First Speaker Dravix, the oldest member of the council, raised a wrinkled hand. His species lived for thousands of years, and wisdom seemed to pour from his 6 eyes. "Show us the latest reports," he said softly. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a swirling mass of darkness moving through space. Where it passed, planets simply vanished. Not destroyed. Completely erased, as if they had never existed. "Our best shields failed," said a robot-like being made of living metal. The Exolian defense grid lasted only 7 minutes before it was absorbed. The Viridian mind link tried to communicate with them. Added another alien with a large head and tiny body. Our strongest telepaths couldn't find any consciousness to reach. Even the Morvaxian hive mind tactical system calculated 16,000 possible defenses, said a buzzing insect-like creature. All projections show failure. The council members began talking over each other. Some suggested running away to another galaxy. Others wanted to use planet-killer weapons as a last stand. A few simply wanted to give up. Ambassador Ilaris stood up. She was tall and elegant with silver skin that reflected the starlight. The room grew quiet again. "There is one species we have not asked," she said carefully. "The inhabitants of Sol 3. The humans." Zorlath's tentacles curled in disbelief. "Those primitive creatures. They have barely achieved space travel. They still fight over dirt and oil on their own planet," added another council member. Ilara remained calm. "Yes, they are young. Yes, their technology is basic compared to ours. But they think differently." First Speaker Dravix nodded slowly. "I remember when their first ships reached our outer colonies. Their solutions to problems were unusual, sometimes foolish, sometimes brilliant." "What could they possibly offer that our greatest minds cannot?" asked Zorlath. "A new perspective," said Ilara. "When the smartest person in the room is stuck, sometimes the answer comes from unexpected places." The council debated for hours more. Finally, Dravix called for a vote. By a narrow margin, they decided to contact Earth. 2 Earth weeks later, Jack Monroe stepped off the transport ship onto the council station. His eyes widened as he took in the massive structure floating in deep space. Beside him, Samantha Wells gasped at the view of 3 suns visible through the docking bay window. "Did they tell you why we're here?" she whispered. As senior analysts for the United Earth Defense Initiative, they were used to strange assignments, but nothing like this. "Just that it was urgent," Jack replied, "and that the fate of multiple worlds might depend on us." A glowing being floated toward them. It had no real shape, just a swirl of light with a friendly voice. "Welcome, humans," it said. "I am Lyra, your guide. The Galactic Council awaits you." Jack straightened his jacket and nodded to Samantha. Whatever was happening, they would face it together. As they followed Lyra through corridors filled with alien technology beyond their understanding, Jack couldn't help but wonder, why would the most advanced species in the galaxy need help from humans? He was about to find out. Jack and Samantha followed Lyra through wide hallways filled with strange alien technology. They passed beings of all shapes and sizes. Some floated in the air, others moved on many legs, and a few seemed to be made of pure energy. "Your station is amazing," said Samantha, trying not to stare at a creature that looked like a walking crystal. "This is merely a meeting place," said Lyra, her glowing form pulsing as she spoke. "The Council represents over 5,000 species from across the galaxy." They entered a room with a large round table. The walls were actually screens showing stars and planets. One display caught Jack's attention. It showed a dark, swirling mass moving through space. Where it passed, stars simply vanished. "Is that what we're here about?" he asked, pointing. Lyra's light dimmed slightly. "Yes. The Void Eaters. They have destroyed 17 solar systems in the past cycle." "Cycle?" Samantha asked. "About 7 of your Earth months," Lyra explained. "Please, watch." The screens changed to show a beautiful green planet. Then a shadow passed over it. In seconds, the planet began to break apart, turning to dust that was pulled into the darkness. Then the dust itself vanished, leaving nothing behind. "That was Calden Prime," Lyra said softly. "Population 2 billion. Jack and Samantha stood in shocked silence. "The Council has tried everything," Lyra continued. "Energy shields failed. Weapons had no effect. Attempts to communicate received no response." "And you think we can help?" Jack asked, his voice filled with doubt. "Earth doesn't have anything close to your technology." "Technology is not why you are here," said a new voice. They turned to see a tall, silver-skinned alien enter the room. She moved with grace, her eyes a deep purple color. "I am Ambassador Ilara," she said, "and we need human perspective, not human technology." More aliens entered behind her. A creature with purple tentacles, an ancient-looking being with 6 eyes, a robot-like figure made of living metal, and many others. They took seats around the table. The oldest alien spoke. "I am First Speaker Dravix. We welcome you, humans, in our time of need." Jack and Samantha sat down nervously. The Council members explained everything they knew about the Void Eaters and all the failed attempts to stop them. "We have tried to fight them," said the tentacled alien named Zorlith. "We have tried to talk to them. We have tried to study them. Nothing works." Samantha had been taking notes. Now she looked up. "May I ask some questions?" The aliens nodded. "Have you tried figuring out what attracts them to certain systems? Is there a pattern to where they go?" The Council members looked at each other. "We assumed they were attacking at random," said a bug-like alien. "They are a threat, not a natural phenomenon to be studied." Jack leaned forward. "That's your first mistake. You're treating this as either a war or a diplomatic problem." The room fell silent. "What if it's neither?" Jack continued. "What if the Void Eaters are just eating or migrating, following their nature without any malice?" Ambassador Ilara's eyes widened. "You suggest they are simply animals." "Or something like that," Samantha said. "On Earth, when we face a natural disaster like a hurricane, we don't try to fight it directly. We study it, predict its path, and move out of the way." Jack nodded. "And sometimes what looks like destruction is part of a natural cycle. Forest fires clear dead trees so new ones can grow." The Council members began talking excitedly among themselves. First Speaker Dravix raised his hand for silence. "This perspective is valuable," he said slowly. "But we need more than ideas. We need a solution." "Then we need a team," Samantha replied. "Earth scientists with different backgrounds. Biologists, physicists, historians, even artists." "Artists," scoffed Zorlith. "What use are picture makers against cosmic destroyers?" Jack smiled. "Sometimes seeing a problem differently is the first step to solving it. And humans are very good at seeing things differently." First Speaker Dravix nodded thoughtfully. "Very well. Call your team. Time is short. The Void Eaters approach the Orion systems. Billions more lives are at risk." As Jack and Samantha left to contact Earth, Ambassador Ilara walked beside them. "Do you truly believe humans can solve this?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," Jack admitted. "But I do know this. When humans don't understand something, We don't stop until we do. And sometimes, understanding is the key to everything. 4 days later, the Earth team arrived at the Council station. Jack and Samantha greeted them at the docking bay. Each specialist had been chosen for their unique skills and way of thinking. Dr. Alan Grant stepped off the ship first. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He studied strange life forms that didn't need carbon to live. "This place is amazing," he said, looking around at the alien architecture. "I've dreamed of meeting non-Earth life my whole career." Professor Lucy Kim came next. She was shorter with short black hair and quick, clever eyes. She studied energy patterns and had ideas that other scientists often called crazy. "The ship's drive system uses principles I've only theorized about," she said excitedly. "I took readings the whole way here." Frank Davis followed, his military uniform neat and crisp. He had studied how predators hunt and used that knowledge in planning battles. "Impressive security," he noted, eyeing the alien guards. "But they're focused on threats that look like weapons. That's a weakness." Kate Miller walked beside him. She had studied human cultures around the world, especially those that hunted or were hunted by predators. "Did you notice?" she whispered to Frank. "The guards all watch at eye level. Earth predators often attack from below." Last came Ben Carter, a quiet man with paint-stained hands. He created art that showed complex information in ways people could understand easily. "The light here moves differently," he murmured, his fingers moving as if already creating something. Jack led them to a large room the Council had given them. It had the advanced holographic systems the aliens preferred, but Samantha had also requested physical materials: paper, markers, and modeling clay. "The Council thinks we're primitive for wanting these," she said with a smile. Lucy laughed. "Sometimes you need to touch an idea to understand it." They got to work immediately. The Council had shared all their data on the Void Eaters. It was overwhelming. Millions of data points, readings in units humans had never seen before, and observations in alien languages poorly translated to English. "This is a mess," Frank said after 2 hours. "They've collected all this information, but haven't organized it properly." Alan nodded. "They're looking for weapons signatures or communication patterns. But what if the Void Eaters aren't technological at all? What if they're more like space whales or cosmic amoebas?" Kate pinned a paper map to the wall. "Let's start by plotting where they've appeared and where they've gone." For 3 days, they worked almost non-stop. The Council members would visit, watch in confusion as the humans drew on paper, built physical models, and argued loudly with each other, then leave shaking their heads. Ben spent most of his time working with the holographic systems, feeding them data and shaping the output with his hands like clay. On the 3rd day, Lucy jumped up from her chair. "I see it. There's a pattern to their movement." The others gathered around her screen. "They're following energy lines," she explained. Like rivers of power that flow through space." Frank studied the pattern. "Not random at all. They're migrating along specific routes." "And look at this," Alan added, pointing to another screen. "The matter they consume isn't just destroyed. It's changing form, transforming into energy we can't easily detect." Ben stepped back from his holographic model. It showed the galaxy with glowing lines running through it like veins. The Void Eater's path followed these lines exactly. "They're not attacking," Kate said softly. "They're feeding. Following ancient paths that probably existed before any of our civilizations." Samantha looked at Jack. "We need to show the Council." "Not yet," Jack replied. "We need more than just an explanation. We need a solution." Ben pointed to his model. "If these are like rivers, and the Void Eaters follow them like animals migrating, then we can redirect the flow." Lucy finished, her eyes wide with excitement. "Create a new path for them to follow, away from inhabited systems." Frank nodded. "We need to call an emergency council meeting," Samantha said. "I think we might have just found a way to save billions of lives." As they prepared their presentation, Alan looked at the team with pride. We've been in space for less than 200 years, and we're about to teach the most advanced species in the galaxy how to solve their biggest crisis. Jack smiled. Sometimes being new to a problem is exactly what you need to solve it. The Grand Council chamber was packed. Every ambassador and representative wanted to hear what the humans had discovered. Jack stood nervously at the center with his team beside him. Samantha gave him an encouraging nod. "Honored council members," Jack began, "we think we understand what the Void Eaters are and how to redirect them away from populated systems." Murmurs spread through the room. First Speaker Dravix raised his hand for quiet. "Please show us what you have found," he said. Ben stepped forward and activated his holographic model. The galaxy appeared in the air, with glowing blue lines running through it like rivers. "These are cosmic energy currents," Lucy explained. "They've existed since the galaxy formed. The Void Eaters follow these paths naturally." Ellen continued, "The Void Eaters aren't destroying matter. They're transforming it into a type of energy your sensors weren't calibrated to detect." Ambassador Zorlath's tentacles curled with disbelief. "Impossible. We have the most advanced detection systems in the known universe." "Sometimes you don't find what you're not looking for," Kate said gently. "On Earth, we discovered many animal species only when we changed how we searched." Frank pointed to the model. "More importantly, your defensive measures are actually attracting them. The energy shields and quantum barriers you've created are like bright lights to moths." The council chamber erupted in debate. How could they have missed this? How could humans, whose civilization was barely 15,000 years old, see what they could not? Jack raised his hands for quiet. "We're not smarter than you. We're just different. Humans are pattern breakers by nature. Where you seek perfect order, we often find value in some chaos." Lucy stepped forward. "We propose creating artificial energy beacons. They would establish a new current, redirecting the Void Eaters away from inhabited systems." She showed a design on the holographic display. It looked simple compared to the alien technology, but its purpose was clear. "But the energy requirements would be enormous," protested an alien engineer. "That's where the second part comes in," said Frank with a smile. "We don't fight them or run from them. We use them." Ben adjusted the display to show large structures positioned along the new path. "We call these conversion stations," explained Lucy. "They capture the transformed energy the Void Eaters leave behind." "They're not destroyers," Ben said. "They're transformers, part of the galaxy's natural cycle." Dr. Grant added, "Every ecosystem needs decomposers. The Void Eaters break down cosmic matter that's reached the end of its natural life, converting it to energy that can birth new stars." The council members looked at each other in amazement. The solution wasn't to fight or communicate with the Void Eaters, but to understand them as part of nature and work with that reality. Ambassador Ilara spoke first. "We sought to destroy what we feared, when we should have sought to understand." First Speaker Dravix stood slowly, his ancient eyes fixed on the human team. "In all my years, I have never seen such a simple yet profound solution." "Will it work?" asked Zorlath, still doubtful. "We can't be completely sure until we try," Samantha admitted. "But all our calculations suggest it will." "What do you need to implement this plan?" asked Dravix. Jack looked at his team, then back to the council. "We need your technology combined with our approach. We need to work together." Dravix nodded solemnly. For generations, the Council has believed that advanced technology and ancient wisdom were the answer to all problems. Perhaps we had grown too rigid in our thinking. He turned to the assembled representatives. "I propose an immediate alliance with Earth to implement this solution. All those in favor?" Across the chamber, hands, tentacles, appendages, and light patterns signaled agreement. For the first time in Council history, the vote was unanimous. As they left the chamber, Samantha whispered to Jack, "They still don't quite believe it will work." Jack smiled. "Then we'll just have to show them. That's what humans do best." The next 3 weeks were the busiest of Jack and Samantha's lives. The council provided them with a large workshop and access to the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Alien engineers and scientists worked side by side with the human team. They faced challenges every day. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was designed to be perfect and unchanging. The humans needed systems that could adapt and evolve. No, Lucy explained to an Exolian engineer for the third time. The energy flow needs small variations. Perfect consistency will seem unnatural to the Void Eaters. The tall, metal-skinned alien tilted his head in confusion. Imperfection is desirable. In this case, yes, Lucy said patiently. Nature has randomness. River currents have eddies and changing speeds. We need to mimic that. Across the workshop, Frank worked with Viridian tacticians to plan the placement of the energy beacons. We need to create a gradual curve away from inhabited space, he explained, pointing to a star map. Too sharp a turn, and they might ignore our artificial current. The Viridians, with their perfect mathematical minds, struggled to accept his intuitive approach. But they couldn't argue with his results when they ran simulations. Kate spent her time studying all the recorded observations of the Void Eaters' behavior. They slow down near certain types of stars, she noted. We should place the first conversion station near a red giant. They linger there longer. Dr. Grant worked closely with alien biologists, helping them see the Void Eaters as living beings rather than weapons or machines. Think of them as space whales, he suggested. They follow ancient migration routes and feed on certain types of energy. They aren't good or evil. They simply exist. Ben had perhaps the strangest job. The council had given him access to their most powerful visualization systems. He spent hours creating models that helped everyone understand the complex plan. If we place the beacons like this, he demonstrated, his hands shaping light into patterns, the energy current will flow smoothly here, then curve gently away from the Orion systems. As the days passed, the aliens began to understand the human approach. It wasn't about perfect solutions or ultimate power. It was about adaptation, flexibility, and working with nature rather than against it. Ambassador Ilara visited often to check on their progress. One day, she found Jack alone, looking worried as he studied a report. "Is there a problem?" she asked. Jack sighed. "The energy requirements for the beacons are enormous. Even with your technology, powering them long enough to redirect the Void Eaters will drain resources from hundreds of worlds." Ilara's silver skin shimmered as she considered this. Perhaps that is acceptable if it saves those worlds from destruction. Or perhaps there's a better way, said a voice from the doorway. They turned to see Peter Johnson, a mining engineer who had just arrived from Mars. He was a late addition to the team, requested by Samantha. "Sorry I'm late," he said with a grin. "Had to finish a project on Mars first." He walked to the display and studied the power requirements. "You're thinking too conventionally," he said. "You're trying to create energy from scratch. But what if we borrow it instead?" "Borrow it?" Jack asked. "From where?" Peter pointed to the map. "From the Void Eaters themselves. They leave transformed energy in their wake. If we position the first beacon just behind our current position and use that energy to power the next beacon, we create a cascade effect." Jack finished, his eyes widening. "Each beacon powers the next one in line." Ambassador Ilara looked between them. "Is such a thing possible?" "I have no idea," Peter admitted cheerfully. "But on Mars, we had to learn to work with limited resources. Sometimes the crazy solutions are the only ones that work." Jack called the rest of the team together. As Peter explained his idea, excitement grew. It was risky, untested, and completely counter to conventional thinking. In other words, it was exactly the kind of solution humans excelled at. "How soon can we test it?" Samantha asked. Lucy checked her calculations. "We need to modify the first beacon. With the Council's fabrication systems, maybe 3 days." Jack nodded. "Then let's get to work." The Void Eaters won't wait for us to be ready. The day of the first test arrived quickly. The Council had selected a remote area called the Cygnus Reach for the trial. A small group of Void Eaters had separated from the main swarm and was moving through this region. If the plan failed, the damage would be limited. Jack, Samantha, and the team watched from a safe distance aboard a Council observation ship. The modified beacon floated in space ahead of them. It looked simple compared to alien technology. A sphere with curved panels that Peter had designed to collect the energy left by the Void Eaters. "Beacon is in position," reported Lucy, her eyes fixed on the control panel. "Power systems are ready." First Speaker Drevix and several council members stood behind the humans, watching with a mixture of hope and doubt. "The Void Eaters will arrive in approximately 12 minutes, said an alien technician. The waiting was the hardest part. Jack paced back and forth while Samantha checked and rechecked their calculations. Frank stood still as a statue, his military training showing in his calm face. Ben worked on his tablet, making last-minute adjustments to the energy flow patterns. "There they are," Kate said suddenly, pointing to the main screen. Everyone looked up. The Void Eaters appeared as dark swirling clouds against the stars. They moved together like a school of fish, following the natural energy current that ran through this sector. "They're beautiful, in a way," Dr. Grant whispered. "Activating beacon now," said Lucy, pressing a sequence of buttons. The beacon began to glow. It created a new energy stream, similar to the natural one the Void Eaters were following, but slightly brighter and stronger. "Will they notice it?" asked Ambassador Ilara. "They should," Jack said, "if we're right about how they sense energy." For a few minutes, nothing happened. The Void Eaters continued on their original path, seemingly ignoring the artificial current. "It's not working," Zorleth said, his tentacles twitching with frustration. "Give it time," Samantha urged. "They need to sense it first." Just as she spoke, the leading edge of the Void Eater group paused. Then, slowly, they began to turn toward the new energy stream. "They're responding," Lucy exclaimed. The observation deck erupted in cheers as the Void Eaters flowed into the artificial current like water finding a new channel. The beacon glowed brighter as it absorbed the transformed energy left in their wake. "Second beacon is powering up automatically," Peter reported with a grin. "The cascade is working." But their celebration was cut short. One of the beacons further along the path suddenly flashed bright red. "Energy spike in Beacon 3, a technician called out. "It's overloading." The Void Eaters reacted immediately to the energy spike. They began to pulse and swirl erratically, their movements becoming chaotic. "Shut it down," Jack ordered calmly. "Cut power to the whole network." As the beacons went dark, the Void Eaters gradually returned to their natural path. The test had failed. "What happened?" asked Dravix, his ancient face showing deep concern. Lucy studied the readings. The third beacon couldn't handle the energy conversion rate. The spike created an unnatural pattern that agitated them. The council members began to mutter among themselves. Jack could see their faith in the human solution wavering. "This is just the first test," he reminded them. "Now we know what went wrong. We can fix it. How long will these adjustments take?" Zorlaf demanded. "The main swarm approaches the Orient systems. Billions of lives are at stake." Samantha stepped forward. "On Earth, we have a saying. Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, more intelligently. We've learned something valuable today." "She's right," Frank added. "Every test tells us something new about the Void Eaters." Peter was already working on a tablet, redesigning the beacons. "I can strengthen the conversion matrices, make them more flexible to handle energy surges." Dr. Grant nodded. "And we need to add more variation to the energy flow. It was too constant, too artificial." Ben looked up from his work. "I think I know how to fix that. We need to mimic natural cosmic events, like the pulses from rotating neutron stars." First Speaker Dravix listened to the humans discussing fixes and improvements. Despite the failure, They weren't discouraged. Instead, they seemed energized by the challenge. "How soon can you be ready for another test?" he asked. Jack looked at his team, then back to Dravix. 3 days. We'll need to rebuild several beacons." "You have 2 days," Dravix said gravely. "That's all the time we can spare." As the council members left the observation deck, Jack gathered his team. "All right, people. We know what went wrong. Now let's fix it." For 2 days, the human team barely slept. They worked around the clock, redesigning the beacons and improving the energy flow patterns. The council provided everything they needed: materials, tools, and assistance from the best alien engineers. Peter rebuilt the conversion systems to be more flexible, adding special buffers that could handle sudden energy spikes. Lucy reprogrammed the beacons to create natural variations in the energy currents. Like the rhythm of waves on a beach, she explained to the Exolian engineers, never exactly the same, but following a pattern that feels natural. Ben worked with the Viridian scientists to model the new energy flows, making sure they mimicked cosmic phenomena like pulsars and solar flares. Kate and Dr. Grant studied recordings of the first test, noting every reaction from the Void Eaters to refine their understanding. Frank coordinated with Council Defense Forces to establish a safe zone around the test area. If things went wrong again, they needed to be ready. By the end of the second day, they were exhausted but hopeful. The new system was ready. "It will work this time," Samantha said confidently as they prepared for the second test. The same group of Void Eaters had remained in the Cygnus Reach, moving slowly through the star systems there. The Council observation ship took position at a safe distance, and the improved beacons were deployed. More Council members were present this time. The news of the first test had spread, and many wanted to see the human solution for themselves. The main viewing deck was crowded with aliens of all forms. "Beacons are in position," reported Lucy, beginning activation sequence. One by one, the beacons powered up, creating a new energy current that curved gently away from populated systems. The humans watched nervously as the Void Eaters approached. "They're sensing it," whispered Kate. "Look at how they're moving." The dark entities slowed as they neared the artificial current. They seemed to investigate it, swirling at its edges. "Come on," Jack murmured. "Take the bait." The lead Void Eater drifted into the current. Then another followed. Within minutes, the entire group had changed course, flowing into the new path. "Energy conversion is stable," Peter reported, watching the readings closely. "Beacons are absorbing the transformed energy and using it to power the next in line." "The cascade effect is working perfectly," Samantha added. The observation deck erupted in cheers as the Void Eaters followed the entire length of the artificial current, bypassing 2 uninhabited star systems and eventually passing through the first conversion station. "Energy capture at 87% efficiency," Lucy announced with a wide smile. "That's better than we predicted." Ambassador Ilara approached Jack. "You've done it," she said, her silver skin gleaming with emotion. "You've proven your solution works." Jack shook his head. "This was just a small group. The real test will be redirecting the main swarm away from the Orion systems." First Speaker Dravix joined them. "The main swarm is much larger. Will the same approach work?" "We'll need to scale up," Samantha explained. "More beacons, larger conversion stations, but the principle is sound." Frank pointed to the display. "The key will be positioning. We need to intercept them here before they reach this cluster of inhabited worlds." "How long to prepare?" asked Dravix. Lucy checked her calculations. "With the Council's resources, we can have the full-scale system ready in 8 days. The main swarm will reach critical range in 10 days, said a Council technician. Dravix nodded solemnly. "Then we must begin immediately. I will order all available resources dedicated to this project." As the Council members hurried off to make preparations, Jack gathered his team. "Good work, everyone," he said. "But we're not done yet. The main swarm is much bigger and might behave differently. "We'll be ready," Frank said confidently. Ben looked thoughtful. "I've been studying the patterns. I think the main swarm might be more sensitive to variations. We should adjust the energy currents accordingly." Dr. Grant nodded. "Like how larger animals often have keener senses than smaller ones." Kate smiled. "It's fascinating, isn't it? We came here to help with a crisis, but we're learning so much about these cosmic beings." "That's humanity for you," Samantha said. "Always curious, even in a crisis." Jack looked around at his team, feeling the surge of pride. "Let's get to work. We have a galaxy to save." 8 days later, the final beacon was put in place. The entire Galactic Council fleet had worked non-stop to build and position the massive network. It stretched across a huge section of space between the approaching Void Eater swarm and the densely populated Orion systems. The main command center was aboard the Council's largest ship. Jack, Samantha, and their team stood before a giant display showing the position of each beacon and the Void Eater's approach. "The main swarm is 3 times larger than we expected," Lucy said, her voice tense. "Our energy currents might not be strong enough." First Speaker Dravik stood behind them, his ancient face calm despite the danger. "Can we increase the power?" Peter shook his head. "The beacons are already at maximum output. Any more, and they might overload like in our first test." Ambassador Ilara joined them. "Perhaps we should evacuate the outer Orion worlds, just in case." "There's no time," Frank said grimly, "and nowhere to send so many people." Ben had been quiet, studying the display. Now he spoke up. "We're thinking too conventionally again. We don't need more power. We need better music." Everyone turned to look at him. "Music?" Zorlav asked, his tentacles curling in confusion. "It's a metaphor," Ben explained. "The energy current we've created is like a song. Right now, it's simple and straightforward. But what attracts living things isn't just volume. It's complexity and beauty." He adjusted the controls, changing the display to show energy waves. "If we modify the pattern like this," he continued, his fingers moving quickly, "we create something more natural, more interesting." Dr. Grant nodded slowly. "Like how birds are attracted to complex songs during mating season. Or how fish follow the most complex water currents that usually lead to food," added Kate. Lucy studied Ben's pattern. "I think we can reprogram the beacons to create this effect. It will take about an hour." "Do it," Jack ordered. "The swarm will be in range in 2 hours." The next 90 minutes were tense. Lucy and Ben worked frantically to update all the beacons with the new pattern. The others monitored the Void Eater's approach, which seemed to be accelerating. They sensed the populated systems ahead. Dr. Grant explained, "More matter to transform means more energy for them." Finally, Lucy looked up from her station. "It's done. All beacons are reprogrammed." "Activate the network," ordered First Speaker Dravix. Lucy pressed the command sequence. Across space, hundreds of beacons lit up, creating a complex, beautiful pattern of energy that flowed away from the inhabited worlds. "Now we wait," Samantha said quietly. The main viewing screen showed the Void Eaters approaching. The massive swarm looked like a dark storm moving through space, consuming everything in its path. It reached the edge of their artificial current and paused. For an agonizing time that felt like forever, the swarm hovered at the junction between the natural energy current and the human-made one. No one on the command deck spoke. Some held their breath. Then, slowly, the leading edge of the swarm began to turn. Like water finding a new channel, the Void Eaters flowed into the artificial current, following the complex pattern Ben had created. "It's working," Kate exclaimed. As the swarm moved along their carefully planned route, the first conversion station began to glow, capturing the transformed energy left behind. "Energy levels are off the charts," Peter reported with a grin. "We could power the entire Council fleet for a year with just 1 day's conversion." The command center erupted in cheers. Aliens of all species celebrated together. Some embraced the humans in their joy, regardless of how many arms or tentacles they had. One galactic year later, Jack and Samantha stood again in the Grand Council chamber. This time they wore ceremonial robes given to them by the grateful council. Their team stood proudly beside them. First Speaker Dravix addressed the assembled representatives. Today, we formally welcome Earth as a full member of the Galactic Alliance. The humans have proven that wisdom comes in many forms, and true intelligence lies not merely in advanced technology, but in the ability to see with fresh eyes. Ambassador Ilara stepped forward with a glowing crystal sphere. This contains energy harvested from the Void Eaters. Once we feared them. Now they provide power for countless worlds, all because a species we once thought primitive showed us a new way of thinking. As the ceremony concluded, Jack leaned toward Samantha. Not bad for a bunch of primitive humans from a backwater planet. Samantha smiled. Turns out our greatest strength wasn't technology. It was being human, seeing patterns in chaos, finding opportunity in crisis, and imagining new possibilities when everyone else had given up. Outside the chamber windows, the stars shone brightly. Somewhere out there, the Void Eaters continued their journey, no longer enemies but part of a greater balance, and humanity had found its place among the stars.